Hey everyone, in this video we're going to talk about the Linux help system and documentation. Previous video I went over the less command, and the system documentation actually uses an implementation of less, the system manual pager, and I'll include a link to that video right here so that you can jump to that video if you need to. So before we get into the full documentation system, we're going to check out the basic help, and if we take something like the copy command, and then enter -- help, we'll pipe that to less. See here that we actually get quite a bit of information about what's going on. And that's pretty common with tools in the core utils package, but you might not see that with everything. So for example, we have the curl command. The help here is a lot more brief, but we can actually get some help with some different categories in curl. So if we type curl help category, we get the different options that we can check here. So with that, we get another example of how using the -- help flag with a command provides some documentation for us. We also have commands where it actually doesn't take a help flag, like SSH. Here we get an unknown option when we include that. And if we just type SSH by itself, very basic idea of the parameters and arguments we can use with this command. So some commands you'll see like that, where you just type it without any arguments and it will print the help. In other cases, you will get an error telling you that it requires an argument. We also have the built-ins when we just type help like this. Just pipe that to less here. This is basic help as far as the usage for the built-in commands that are part of the shell, meaning they don't call an external program. So just a quick mention of that there. These probably for the most part, if bash is installed, and even in a very minimal system, you're probably going to have at least all of these commands. There's some exceptions to that we won't get into, but just so that you know it's there. Okay, now we're going to talk about the man pages. And this is available whether you have a connection to the internet or not. So, for example, if we start with the copy command, we actually enter into the system manual pager here where we are within the document. So we can scroll around the same we can with the less command. We can hit Q to quit. And most of the things that apply to less generally apply to the man pages. So to start, I'm just going to point out here that by our command, we have this 1 in parentheses here, and that's referring to the section that this manual page belongs to. We'll take a look at where you can read the intro for a section so you get an idea of what type of information is in each section. And here I'll just point out real quick that we can actually add the F flag to the man command and the item that we want to look up. It'll return the item that we search for along with the sections that it's found in. So in this case, mount actually has is it found in multiple sections, and the F flag is actually the same as doing what is. So if we do a man mount, here we're going to get the system administration section by default, and that's typically what we'll get by default if there are multiple sections, is how it applies to using it from an administration perspective. But if we wanted to get the page from section 2 here, we just add .2 and we get the system calls menu. So this is more about the programming implementation than how we would use it from a system administration perspective. So I just want to point out that we can also get the manual page on some of our configuration files, in this case, our FS tab. And those are contained in section 5 and also etc host here, where we manage our host file entries. It will give us all the information we need about managing these files. And where our man pages are contained are actually in USR share man And then if we tab, we can see that we have 1 through 8 for all our sections. And if we want to get a better idea of what is in each section, we can do man, intro, and dot, and the number of the section we want to learn about here. We took a look at FS tab and host earlier. So in this section, it's actually going to contain information mostly relating to various configuration files on the system. Okay, so now let's take a look at a man page in a little more detail here. So if we hop over here, it's also broken up into different sections, and we already covered how we can tell which section it's part of. We see the name section and then a synopsis here. Synopsis, we have a convention where we have bold text, such as here, and that's typed exactly as shown. So in this case, our switches here are typed exactly as shown here. And then we have underline or sometimes italic. If it's rendered in, say, a browser, or some terminals are capable of rendering italic, but usually in the terminal, you're going to see it underlined. And that is what you're going to replace with the argument that you're going to be using with your command. When you have args in a set of square brackets, those are optional. But if they're delimited with a pipe, that means that they cannot be used together. So for example, let's take a look at tar. We have some options that can't be used together here. So we also have situations where we have arguments that are repeatable in a command. So if you have an argument and ... that means that's repeatable. And if you have brackets and an expression in your example, then that means that that expression is repeatable in that command. So let's just take a look here real quick. Clear this up. And let's just do tar AC. These were two of the options that were separated by pipe, meaning that they can't be used together. And so in this case, we get an error letting us know that we've specified two options together that are not compatible. So just as a quick look back at tar here, is that we have our file with ... at the end of our options here. So let's go ahead and make a test directory here. Test. Three files, so let's do tar-c for create, -f for our target. And that's how we can parse the synopsis and kind of figure out what options go together and how we can pass different arguments to our command. So let's just take a look at something else here. So in this example, we also have the description section that gives us an idea of how the command works and how it operates. And for something like file, we have an extremely long description of how it operates. But if we take a look at something like the copy command here, we can see that our description is pretty short. We can run through the rest of the page here, and we see that we get all of our options and a description of how they operate, as well as some additional information sometimes at the end of the man page. And we also sometimes have additional documentation online. And this will vary depending on the program. Sometimes the external documentation is just a web page with exactly what's in the man page. Other times you might have additional documentation. For example, if we check out something like Python, and if we actually go to the end here, we get not only the documentation, but we get some additional resources as well. So that is always a good place to look for additional information. I've seen some things that like GNU tools that have additional manuals on their website. So that's a good place to look for help. We also have a couple other switches we can run with the man command to help us find things. Like we can do man-k, and then we can enter a search term like disk, and it's going to return a list of all the man pages that have the word disk within the short description. We can also, so man cf disk, we can see disk is part of that. And real quick, I'll just mention that is the same as Tropos. And we get the same results. And just as another example here, and we get everything that has extract in the short description. There's also a way we can do a keyword search that actually searches the page. This can get a little tricky though, because as you quit each page, it asks you if you want to view the next one. We can view it by hitting enter. And we get the next page. If we quit again, then it wants to show us another page. And we can actually narrow that down. Just exit here. And we can narrow that down by the section. And so that is another option for searching through the pages. Okay, and just a couple of things that I want to quickly mention here. We have a couple of other options here where we can display man pages in our browser, or even if you're running GNOME, you can run it in the help utility. So one way to do it is if we type man, our browser, the page we want, we can actually view it within our browser. And we have another option here, or if we type Yelp. And there are also other desktop environments where Yelp can be installed. It's part of GTK, so it should work okay on anything using that. Yelp, and then the page we want. And we can also view it that way. And then a quick mention about kernel.org doc man-pages. We can actually look at the online pages and we can search for anything here and view the options this way as well. And of course, if help is needed, you can always use your favorite search engine for the results. I do recommend getting familiar with the man pages and using them. Some are more detailed than others, but they're still a really good resource for learning your system. So I hope you found this crash course to man pages helpful. And if you did, I'd appreciate if you'd like and subscribe, and also comment and let me know what type of content you'd like to see in the future. Thanks for watching.